Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast. We combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Rosie Mankes. Rosie is a life coach and author of Find Your Joy and Run With It, a heartwarming memoir about overcoming her second battle with cancer, the transitioning of her mother into an assisted living facility, and the unexpected loss of her brother, all within a year. Rosie's recovery from these major challenges inspired her to become a life coach in order to help people pull through significant adversities in life challenges. And we will all have life challenges. Rosie is a resident of New Jersey where she lives with her husband and a mother of two grown sons. So please welcome to the show, Rosie Mankes. Rosie, thank you again for being here today on the Encouragement Engineering Podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. Well, if we can, let's tell more people about you and how you got to where you are. Obviously, with that intro, a second round of cancer, that's heavy. But tell us how you got to write the book and everything like that.
So as you mentioned, I went through three very significant things in a 1 year period of time, from September of 2015 to September of the following year, 2016. And, I was in a really deep, despondent place. Actually, after my brother passed away, I actually felt cursed. I was worried about what might happen next.
Wow.
And, but deep down, I didn't want to be that person that was just kind of crawling and limping through life. I wanted to figure out how can I bring myself back, but not just bring myself back, but try to figure out a way to find joy in everyday living. And of course, back then, that didn't even seem possible because, I was going through so much. I really just needed, the first thing was to try to figure out, finding how to be happy again. I wear a bracelet. It's called a blessings bracelet. I'll show you, it has 4 beads on it. And every day I acknowledge 4 blessings in my life. But at that point where I was in the place that I was, I needed to sit down and try to figure out what happy was. So one day I sat down with my journal and I decided to write down 5 things that make me happy. And I looked at the page and I couldn't come up with anything. So I said, okay, well, maybe if I take a step back and I think about 5 things that could make me happy. So I wrote this very basic, very rudimentary list, and I'll share it with you. And those are the 5 things that I came up with. I came up with sitting on the couch with the dog snuggled next to me, just feeling the warmth of them, or taking a walk, even if it's just around the block, because, don't forget, I had major surgery. I had a double mastectomy. So walking just around the block was a big deal. Sitting with my morning beverage and really savoring its good taste, watching a sunrise or a sunset, or even something as simple as lighting a candle and then turning off the lights to watch it glimmer. So that was my list back then of like things that could make me happy. And I said, okay, now, but I'm not doing them. So I decided to turn them into affirmations. And I would read them over and over until which point I felt I could integrate them back into my life. And when I got through with that list, I would do another one just to kind of build those that from that place where I was, try to build up. And another thing I did during that year was I also took a look at things I gave up, because as you might know, if you're going through a really significantly difficult situation, you start to give up the things that you like to do because you're just trying to just survive. And one of the things I gave up was I stopped turning the radio on because I couldn't fathom listening to a song, singing along, or connecting to the lyrics. But music is so important to me, and I probably needed it more then than any other time. So I started to integrate music back into my life, starting very simple with like songs from when we were teenagers, songs for me like Billy Joel and Jim Croce. And then I went from there. I looked at songs that just kind of make you happy, like September by Earth, Wind and Fire. Like everybody jumps up to dance to that one at a party, right? Yeah. And then I went for the ones where, like, the way I feel that music speaks to me, like music speaks directly to me, like Let It Be, or Calling All Angels by Train. And now, since that time where I decided to bring that as well as other things back into my life, now every day there's music in my life. In the morning, everybody has different times when they listen to music, but for me in the morning when I'm putting on makeup, and at night when I'm cooking. So I brought music back into my life, and a couple of other things as well. So that's how I started to build the foundation. And, there's more to it, but I just, just wanted to share that as the beginning part.
No, and that's a great, if you will, jumping point for the conversation, because you went through a lot, and yet you got to, a reminder for people is it's going to take time to get over that. And two, you take small steps, but you continue those steps literally around the block, or your affirmations, and integrating those back into your life. And like you said, the different things that you stopped doing, you realized, and you adjusted and brought those back in if they were positive. Your mindset, it seemed like it strengthened through this experience. Would you say that?
I think so. I really do. And you brought up an interesting point. So before I went through this, awful year, let's call it, when I wanted to get to something, I always thought very big picture. I'll do this one big thing, it'll fix it. I'll do this other big thing, it'll fix it. And it really is not a big picture thing. It's a series of small things that, when brought together, create that kind of change that you want in your life.
Right.
And I needed to do things in small ways, and I encourage any of your listeners that are going through something that you have to start small, get almost to a granular level in order to get to create that change that you want in your life.
And that's so hard, because our society goes at 900 miles an hour. And as you mentioned in the book, okay, you were doing all these, you did ad executive, it was an ad executive, right?
Mm-hmm. Ad sales, yes.
Yeah, and sales. And I mean, that's a fast-paced scenario in itself. And here, everybody else, I'm sure, in the world is going 900 miles a second. You've got to learn to slow down. And these small things make you do that. And unfortunately, that was a way, I guess, for God to say, hey, you need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to go through that myself. I don't, I just pray that you're on a great road to recovery from it. So it's a long haul. I lost my mother to cancer when I was young, 6 years old, and a number of relatives as well. And yeah, there's those battles. I mean, it's hard. And even you mentioned, putting your mother into an assisted living facility. I've been there, done that too. And it's not easy what you have to deal with. And what you mentioned it in the book, it was so funny because I had to laugh at it when I read it. They show you one thing, but what's really going on? And, you walk into them, and the smells you smell, and what's really going on, what's activities time, like different things you really need to look at. I think a lot of people need to understand these phases in our life, that it could come on quickly, it could come on slowly, or it could be very quickly, like your brother passing. It's such a tragic thing. But we have to be able to adapt and overcome those things. And I think your mindset in the book, you show how you deal with that in a real life scenario, as a real person. I think that's so great, because it really, you connect with you in the book. And
yeah, thank you.
Sure. Now, I know it seemed like you're fun loving and all this. Did that, that stopped during this, if you will, because like you said, you're trying to survive. You mentioned that earlier. And then you brought those ideas back. Did that change your perspective on life as a whole, to appreciate, like you said, I think your gratitude things, you're appreciating that taste of the coffee or the morning beverage, if you will. It's about how that worked for you.
Yeah, so back then, I was in a really bad space. My friends, after my brother passed away, they didn't think I was coming back after that one. It was just 3 things all in a row that had happened to me. I would say that for me, as I said, it's a series of small things that brought together. But one of the biggest, most pivotal thing that was important to me was finding meditation, but not just meditation. Mindfulness was a real game changer for me. So, when somebody said to me, oh, you should try to meditate, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I have a marching band going on in my head at all times.
Right.
It's never going to happen. And then I found this deep level of connectivity with meditation. I'm actually just last month, I celebrated 14,000 minutes meditating with Headspace, which is It's crazy. But then even bigger, the shift came when I, decided that, wow, I need to dig deeper into this. And I found mindfulness. And as I said, busy brain, always, worrying, obsessing about what happened in the past, what I could have done better, or plotting and planning the future. And, I know we need to make educated decisions for ourselves, but sometimes the best place to be is really where your feet are planted. And bringing myself back to that, and being able to practice that in my life and also with the people that I coach has been a real game changer for me.
That's something, because again, that helps you to slow down. But when you say the mindfulness, tell us a little bit more about that. So what is that? Does that entail shifting how you're thinking, what you're doing, all of the above? If you can explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a very grassroots example, and then
Okay.
I can share another one a little different. So I like to walk. I go out for walking. I call it me time, because
Okay.
I go out by myself. I go out for an hour. And prior to finding mindfulness, I was on my walk, but I was busy. I was looking at my phone, checking emails, maybe shoot a text or fielding a phone call. And, it really wasn't me time because I was doing a lot of things. But now, after I found mindfulness, which was about, 5 years ago, it became, after, this whole terrible story that I shared earlier, it became about being out on that walk, taking the phone, because just in case it's an emergency, of course, but then looking at the blue sky and looking at the cloud formations, looking how the sun pierces the clouds. And in my kind of spiritual way, I feel that that's our loved ones that are no longer here, shining their light and showing us their presence. And then using my senses, listening to the birds chirping. I actually like to listen, but I also like to look for them and see where they are, and the trees swaying, the smell of fresh cut grass. And my husband and I now, since I started mindfulness, every week we try to catch either a sunrise or a sunset. And I love the way in the morning, if you go and you see the light break through the darkness, and every day a sunset is different. A sunrise is different. But then people call us, my husband and I, the sunset chasers, because when we have an opportunity to plan an event and incorporate a sunset into it, we do. And we'll share it, take a picture and share it on social media. But so that's more of a grassroots example of mindfulness. But I'll tell you another thing is that I was always that person that, would go to, let's say, a concert, a show, and be there in the moment. I'm in it, right? I'm there, but I'm taking photos, I'm taking videos. Now I have to throw it on social media. So now I have to think about what my post is going to say. What's my caption going to be? Put my phone down a little while, pick up the phone. Oh, I got comments. I have to answer the comment. But now it's like the phone goes in my bag. The performer comes on, the performer's rocking it. I'm in it, I'm swaying back and forth, arm in arm with, whoever I'm there with, just singing along. Because the question that I ask myself is, are you more interested in recording this experience or living it? And the answer is living it, right? Why am I recording it when I'm not actually even that involved? So these are the kinds of things that, that are important to me. Is when I say mindfulness, it means I am totally committed and invested in this experience. And that's how those are just a couple examples of mindfulness to me.
And those are great, because it is, as a parent, I understand you're always doing that with your kids. You're recording it, you're doing this, but like you said, then you sit back and say, what went on? And you forget. You're like, because you're not really there, and you're busy with all kinds of stuff, and that becomes a habit, and you just got to stop, put it down, just enjoy it for yourself. That's a great analogy for people. Enjoy the moment and put the phone away. You don't need to, unfortunately, it's one of those things that people will want to post all kinds of stuff, and that's fine after, but enjoy it while you're there. Great examples for people. Appreciate that. Now, have you found through this experience strength in others that maybe increase your value of the experience? That makes sense?
So,
you talk about your friends being there for you in the book, and I think that's so critical. So tell us how they supported you and that strength they gave you.
Yeah, so it was the combination of friends and close family members that through the whole thing that were pivotal for me to get through this thing. I mean, I remember, and I was just thinking about this a little earlier today. I remember that my brother died in a tragic accident. I remember getting that phone call, and then the next day having to try to put together a bag to fly down to South Carolina. For your listeners, my brother had a tragic accident and he was pronounced brain dead, and he lived in South Carolina. We're in New Jersey. So our whole family, wherever we were, flew down there to go to the hospital to say our goodbyes. And I could just remember my friends just coming to my house and me just looking at them like, I can't even function to do this, to put this bag together to go, and them helping me and them rising up and helping me also with, taking care of my pets and making sure my children are okay. One of my sons was in California, so he needed to get back from California to be at our home for our memorial service when we would come back to New Jersey, making sure he had somebody at Newark to go get him, to take him back to my house. And just the support that I received from that experience, as well as through my double mastectomy, people rising up and saying, Rosie can't cook, so we're going to send food in, or we're going to go cook for her and her family. I couldn't drive after my double mastectomy, and I had to get to doctor's appointments. And of course, my husband was there for me, but then it got to the point where, you had to go to several different places. So rather than him having to take off from work frequently, there was a schedule. Right. So-and-so is a Tuesday, and then so-and-so's Thursday. And, I can't tell you how much I appreciated the level of support that I had through that very significantly difficult year.
And that's one of the things that in reading that book and experience that, if you will, you don't realize those things that, oh yeah, they're taking out part of your body. That simple things of putting your hands up on a steering wheel can hurt severely, and you don't, it's just different things like that. You've got to realize of what you went through, and you explain that so well in the book, and it's just enlightening that, wow, that is, no wonder it does change you. And yeah, there's a lot to it. So the support you seem to get with that, and you explain it in the book that how they're there for you, and the conversations you're able to have, and how some of them would just say, okay, we're going to go get a manicure or something. It was a nice breakup to that, because you could feel the heaviness of it, but then you'd see the light in it. You're like, wow, those are some people I want to hang out with, because they seem like great people.
Yeah, I have to say I was blessed with good people. I mean, even to the extent then I shared this in the book that when there was a special occasion for my husband and I to do something, that they would come over with clothes from their closet, and we do like we called a fashion show, and we kind of all around the same weight, and I try on things, and they would give me the thumbs up that, yeah, okay, this is the one to wear to that wedding or whatever it might be. It was really, I was very blessed in that way that I had that kind of support. And it's, we do it for each other. I mean, right. I'm there, even if they're not struggling, we're there for each other. We actually are very, very close group of friends.
And that's great, because one of the things that I noticed too was when you talked about going to a wedding for the first time after your surgery and everything, and it was several months, but the consciousness of what you thought everyone else was thinking, and how that weighed on you. You felt that in your writing. Was that something, obviously that took some time to get over, but was that, once you were there, tell us this one story about, when you went into the wrong wedding. That was great. That was a nice uplifting thing there. But go tell us that, if you would.
Okay. First, the first wedding I went to that you refer to is the wedding where I thought, I'm a very social person. I was all excited. I was getting dressed up, my hair blown out, put makeup on, and go to a wedding. And we were 5 minutes from the wedding, and I had this crippling social anxiety, because I was very fearful about going in, and maybe people might have perhaps looked down at, my breasts before looking in my eyes. I know that sounds weird to some people, but it was something that had happened to me. So I had to actually go to that wedding. And what I did is I kind of like spent the cocktail hour kind of rehearsing my experience with the people that I was going to see. And maybe they might ask, instead of asking me, how are you? They might have said, oh, I heard what happened. So I wanted to be prepared. And that's what I did through that cocktail hour, and got to the reception, and exactly what I thought would happen happened. But I was able to power through because I had done this kind of like this preparation. But the second wedding I went to this wedding, was all kind of like feeling that whole social anxiety thing again. And I said to my husband, let's just, put our stuff down at the table in the reception area and then go grab a drink so I could be prepared to meet up with the people that I haven't seen since before my surgery, and the social anxiety part of it. So we just went into the cocktail hour, grabbed a drink, and then I had a moment to look around, and I was like, I don't recognize anyone. And I would recognize them from the engagement party, right? So I didn't recognize any of my friends, but I didn't recognize any of the family of the bride, because that was the side that we were with. And my husband's all like, oh, that's nothing. Let's just go get some hors d'oeuvres. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I have to figure this out. And I asked the name of the wedding, and they said, oh, you don't know, you're at the right one. I'm like, no. So I went to the front door. They asked somebody a little bit more official, and he said, oh no, the wedding you're at is across at the building over there. And we like literally walked the walk of shame across the parking lot, and with my drink, because I said to him, "Can I keep my drink?" And he's like, sure. And we went into the right wedding, and they're like, what happened? And it was the perfect way to break my social anxiety about seeing them, because I had a zany story.
Yeah.
And they were all annoyed because I had wine and they didn't, because
Yeah.
we decided not to give out beverages before the real wedding was supposed to be at. So I was like, well, you should have crashed the wrong wedding, so yeah, there were kind of like some funny things that like kind of, I feel like they were kind of divine interventions in places where I felt that I wasn't quite comfortable. Something like that would happen that would allow me to push through, because it was a funny thing.
And that's a great reminder for people too. Even though you may get into these situations, there's going to be something that will make it a little bit easier. And I love that story, because I could just picture you looking around, go, wait, something's not right here.
My husband was ready to dive into the hors d'oeuvres, and I'm like, no, we can't get more committed to this wedding, because I don't think we're in the right place.
Yeah, he's bringing over chicken wings and everything like that to this other one. You're like, what? That's funny. Well, if you can, going over, like, one of the things I saw was like acceptance or overcoming. People probably describe you as an overcomer, obviously, with what you've gone through. And I guess there's stages of it, even with what your mother went through, that acceptance of that stage of life. And you talked about a little bit, even with your brother, accepting that reality. How hard was that, as being, if you will, an overcomer, but yet here are these other things that now you have to accept and know that this reality is what's going to occur.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy knowing, the things that I had to endure. I mean, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, thankfully.
Yes.
I mean, I thankfully found both my cancers early on. They didn't require treatment. And as I said, I lost my brother, and I lost my mother, not physically, but, the part of her that was so special. My mother was like my best friend. I called her when, good things happened. I called her when I was struggling with things. And, having, if something bad happened to me, like my lung surgery, she, in 2008, she was well. She came running to take care of me and my young family. There's a whole grieving process that goes along, for your listeners, if they have anybody that they're transitioning from being at home to an assisted living or perhaps a nursing facility, there's a whole level of grieving that goes along with that, because you're transitioning from the child to the parent role.
Yes.
And it's something that is significant, and it takes time to really kind of break that down and, adjust to that new role that you have in your parent's life. It's significant. So for me, I broke it down into small pieces, and I learned along the way that self-care is so important. Something that I didn't even know about. I had no idea what self-care was before this. But for me, I would say that when I see my mom, and even till this day, my mom is still with us. She's in memory care now. And I remember thinking, oh, she's so resistant about being in this space. She didn't want to live there. And I would say to myself, okay, you are right now are not in a position to be able to handle it. You're feeling very vulnerable. I would say to her, Mom, I just got a call from work. I need to leave. And I would leave because I needed to leave, because it was too much for me. The emotions were too raw, and I needed to leave. So I would, encourage people that to look at self-care as a way of being able to heal from adversity too. I do, as I said, I told you before, I do the gratitude every day, but I have this list of me time must do things. And my list starts every week. I have to move my body 3 times a week, which means exercise. I do the gratitude, I do the meditation and the mindfulness, and also acts of kindness, because I feel very strongly about that. The person that you do the act of kindness to is so appreciative, but you get back tenfold in the way you feel after doing it. But also not just acts of kindness to others, but to myself. So when I get up in the morning, in my day, I'll write down, today I will be kind to myself by doing blank. And blank can be anything from yoga, a bubble bath, a walk, sitting in the sun with reading a book, feeling the warmth of the sun. And every day I do that. I find something that will bring me joy, and I will be kind to myself with.
And that's important for people to remember. Just alone is, you've got to remember to do that to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And part of that is forgiveness. Part of that is letting go, because we can't change the past. It is what it is. It's written in the books. We can't change it. Why do we focus on it? Why do we carry it forward? We can learn from it and move forward. The great reminder there, because that like you said, those steps, they'll build your strength, that understanding of the things you've gone through, and accepting that, learning from it, growing through it. I'm familiar with the memory care. My father was in one of those too, and a lady that my wife took care of for years recently passed away in June. But very familiar with that scenario, and that's hard, because it's it's that stage of where the golden years, if you will, aren't so golden, and it can be hard. So thankful your mother's still here, that you get to see her at least. Pray for her that she stay strong for you. So do that.
Thank you.
One of the things I also saw was, you got to tell us this, because in the book you mentioned the dimes. Can you tell us about the dimes? I think that's a great piece of information for people.
So in my book, I also share that I have a friend that passed away many years ago. Her name is Marianne. And before she left us in 2004, she said that she would send us these little, what we call winks from beyond, that she was with us. And some of the ways that she said she would be with us is that if a glass broke at a gathering, that was her showing her presence. Or if we would see sunflowers or dragonflies, whether it be like jewelry or the actual thing, sunflower or dragonfly. Another way was through music, like songs that she loved, that if it came on a specific time, and it usually came at just the time that I needed it the most, when I was struggling, would be that song would come on. And so those are some of the ways that she would share her presence with us. So for me, I was, as I said, struggling through things. And then I decided very shortly after my mastectomy that I wanted to become a life coach and eventually become a speaker. And so I signed up for the training within 2 weeks of my surgery and started to go through the coursework. And in one day period of time, I found 6 dimes. Now, imagine that, somebody like myself who doesn't even pay for things with money. I always use my credit card because I want to get the the miles, right?
Ah,
So for me to find 6 dimes in a 24-hour period of time is unfathomable. So I looked it up, I Googled it, and it said finding dimes is validation that you're on the path you were meant to be on. And I said, wow, this is amazing, because I feel like I really am on this path that I want to be on, which is to be able to share my story of how I went from adversity and I can move towards emotional wellness and even move into an even bigger place where I could find something that's joyful in my life every day,
right.
and be able to share that with others. So I actually put a dime
Yeah.
every day in my left shoe, because I'm left-handed, and that doesn't even make any sense. But anyway, it's like a rock. It's like subtly annoying, but instead of being annoyed by it, I'm inspired by it, because it reminds me that I'm on the path that I was meant to be on. And I always, when I do speeches, I always put a basket of dimes in the back of the room, and I say to people, perhaps you might feel like carrying a dime as you move along your path. And like I said, if you would like one, please take a dime on the way out. So that's my story with dimes. Dimes are special to me. And I have had people read my book and then they text me or they email me, I found the dime today, Rosie. So everybody always thinks of me when they find the dime now.
That's great. That's great. I mean, and it's a good reminder for people to remember that, it's not just an annoyance in your shoe, but it's a reminder that
Yes.
we're doing the right thing. I think I always spin things to the positive. So, it's funny when people say, do stuff at work. Oh, well, when you get hit by a bus, we won't know what to do. No, when I hit the lotto, you won't know what to do,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah. So a great reminder for people, because there are other things that can help us to continue on our journey in a positive way, no matter what we go through. And I think your life and what you've gone through and what you write about, it's definitely that. You show people that stuff's going to happen and it's going to be hard, and you can get through it. And here's some ways to get through it. And you've given us some great examples for that. Thank you for that. So,
Oh, thank
Rosie,
you.
where can people find out more about what you're doing and your website and everything like that?
So yes, I have a website. It's my name. It's www.rosiemankes.com. On there is information about life coaching, but also I have a book, and it's called Find Your Joy and Run With It, as you shared and we talked about today. And there's a link to the book on the website if anybody is interested in reading more about my story and the things that I did on my path to wholeness and healing from significant adversity.
Great. And I'll make sure we have those in all the show notes as well, so people can follow up with you. And check out the book. Find your joy and run with it. It's a great book, great read. You definitely will be inspired. You'll definitely understand what you went through and the strength it takes, and the camaraderie and the friendship. It's just a great encompassing book. So congratulations on it. I hope you're, explaining that more with people on that overcoming the adversity piece when you speak, because I'm sure it's a powerful speech. But I want to thank you, Rosie, for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. And I really enjoyed our conversation. It was really fun to speak to you today and share a little bit more about me. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Rosie. You have a great day.
You too.